Today I want to share with you my top 10 kitchen garden items to hunt for at the thrift store, the junk shop, and from the garbage. And most of what I'm sharing today you can find in the garbage for free. Hi sweet friends, I'm Mary and welcome to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, ferment, sourdough, and more. So if you enjoy learning about those things, consider subscribing to my channel and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Well, in a previous video, I shared with you my top 10 kitchen items to hunt for at the thrift store, the junk shop, and from the garbage. And it was so popular and you all enjoyed it so much and left me wonderful comments that I wanted to share with you my top 10 kitchen garden items to hunt for at the thrift store, the junk shop, and from the garbage. So that's what we're going to discuss today. Now first I want to share with you exactly what I mean when I use the term thrift stores, junk shops, and well, from the garbage is pretty self-explanatory. But when I say thrift stores, I'm talking about your large chains like Goodwill and Salvation Army and Savers, as well as those religious thrift shops like St. Vincent de Paul and the Ladies of Charity. And when I use the term junk shop, what I'm referring to are sort of those little independent stores that, yes, may even have the name thrift shop in their title. However, they're really more selling things that may be broken or missing parts. Often people who have things that they need to throw out that they don't want to hire a particular refuse service to remove because their town's regular trash service may not take these things away, or they just want to make a few dollars. They'll bring these stores to this sort of junk purveyor and he'll give them a few dollars and then he'll turn around and sell them and make a few dollars. But often what the stores are like, they may be very cramped, things may not have been cleaned or dusted off, and as I said, maybe missing parts or broken, but with a little TLC you can usually bring them back to life, and the prices are generally extremely reasonable. And when I talk about the garbage, I'm generally referring to what may be in recycling bins or things that people just kind of leave out on trash day that they want to have removed. However, alert, alert, alert. Keep in mind that many towns and cities today have ordinances about taking things out of other people's trash. So you need to know the laws in your town. You don't want to be breaking the law. But there are many ways that you can acquire things from trash simply by getting to know your neighbors. If you see they have particularly nice things in their recycling bins or on the curb at their driveway, and you can ask them, gee, in the future, might you be able to set some things aside for me? Or might I be able to have that? I think I can make good use of it. And most people are very happy to know that their junk is going to be upcycled in some way by someone who can put it to good use. Because as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Also, when it comes to finding free stuff, you can look on Craigslist, you can look on FreeCycle, you can look on Facebook groups. Different places like that are places where people will often advertise things that they just want to get rid of, that they want to have a new home. And so you can often find things for free that are basically getting them from the garbage, more or less, on those type of sources. Well, as I said in the beginning, the bulk of what I want to share to you are things that you can find for free in the garbage that are perfect for your kitchen garden. However, I do like to look for certain things at the thrift stores and other things I like to look for at the junk shop. There are two things I like to look for at the thrift store and two things I like to look for at the junk shop, which I'm going to share with you now. Now first, when it comes to thrift stores, you may actually even have a lot of these lying around in one of your kitchen junk drawers, as I call them. But if you're at a thrift store, and sometimes you'll see, a little box filled with keychains, or maybe sometimes the keychains are in the section where they're selling costume jewelry, whatever the case may be, keychains can come in really handy when it comes to keeping track of what you plant in your kitchen garden. What I like to do is save the little stakes that come with the plants that I buy. And they're just usually small plants, but most of the small plants will have these little stakes in them. and it'll identify what it is, and then on the back it'll give some information about spacing and planting depth and height and whether it likes full sun or partial sun or whatever the case may be. And what I like to do is punch holes in the top just with a little hole puncher and then put them on the keychain. And then I'll divide it up. Like on this one, I have all herbs. And on this one, I have my vegetables. And this way, I always have at the ready, what did I plant? Now, I put garden stakes around my garden, so I know what I'm planting there. I don't use these in the garden. You certainly can, but I've had these garden stakes for, oh my goodness, maybe 20 or 30 years. And I just kind of use a little Brillo pad to erase, something that maybe I'm not growing and I want to write something new. But I have those around that I've showed you in some of my garden videos. So with these plastic ones, which also too sometimes I find with the really hot heat we have here in Central Texas, these can start to deteriorate. So what I do is I just put them on these little keychains, and then I keep these handy, usually in my garage with my kitchen supplies. And then if I wonder the following year, well, what brand did I buy? Or what variety did I buy? I can just go back and look at this. Oh, okay, these were Bonnie plants, and these were Mammoth jalapeno. Or these were also Bonnie plants, which are often the ones that I'll find at Home Depot. Cucumber, these were Boston heirloom pickling cucumbers. And then these were beets, the rainbow mix. These I actually found on clearance at my grocery store. But then it's so nice to know exactly what brands I had bought. Did they do well? Did I like them? And if for any reason during the season I want to refer to something as to what the particular variety was, or did they really correspond, given Central Texas heat, to the directions like full sun. I know from experience a lot of things, even though on the back they'll say full sun, they really only do well in partial sun here. Full sun's just a little too much for them. So I'll take a pen, like one of the kind of waterproof ones, and I'll just write in parens like partial sun is better, or little notes like that. So when you're at the thrift store, or even from your kitchen junk drawer, just look for some keychains and start doing this. Next, I want to take you over to the front part of my kitchen garden where our little pond is, and I want to show you one of the things I really love to look for at thrift stores. Now we're on the front side of my kitchen garden where we have this lovely little stone pond. So that's what you're hearing as the water is flowing down over the little waterfall. But this pond is so delightful and refreshing. But the nicest thing about this pond is, in addition to the fact that it gives our lovely birds a place to drink and to bathe, it is a wonderful habitat for toads. And we love our toads, and we love when they come and lay their eggs, and when we have all the little tadpoles, and then they grow into mature toads, and it's just delightful to see. But what I like to keep around the pond, and that I like to look for at thrift stores, are these old pieces that were probably once in an aquarium, and they make wonderful toad abodes, as it's called. Some people, you can just take a little old flower pot and bang out a piece and turn that upside down. That can work really well too. But these are wonderful, and the toads love them. It makes nice little shelters for them, and it's just delightful to have the toads in our kitchen garden. Seeing them jump around and swim, it just brings such joy to my husband and me. And when our son was younger, he loved it. And so if you have any kind of a water area in your kitchen garden, be sure to look for these old aquarium pieces that can make great toad abodes. The next item that I want to talk to you about is something that I always look for at junk shops. And this time of year, we're in April now, through the summer, this is a great time to start searching through your junk shops for things for your kitchen garden, because you're really going to start seeing them as people start gardening and are cleaning out their gardens and maybe starting to get rid of some stuff that they don't want any longer, that they feel may not be useful, but they are. I highly recommend that you look for any kind of stakes for your garden, because these are often, as I said, very abundant at junk shops. Now, they're going to be probably old and rusty, but in my opinion, old, all the better. This thing you can't tell on camera, but this is so heavy. And this is a beautiful stake that I put in the ground and that I use it as a guide so that when I unroll the hose goes around this and doesn't run over my plants. So keep your eyes open for stakes like this that are perfect to use as hose guides. And the heavier, the better. And you're literally going to pay probably pennies for this. I didn't mention earlier, but as I said, junk shops, it's always, not so clean, a little disorganized. And many times you'll just get a box, you'll be given a box or a bag, and you can fill it for a couple of dollars. And so keep your eyes open for these. Now, those stakes work great as hose guides. The other type of stakes that I always like to keep my eyes open for, and yes, they may be rusty and dirty, but if you don't mind having them look rustic in your kitchen garden, I don't mind. I just leave them be, but you can always paint them as well. But I love finding stakes like this. Now, these are just little ones, and you might say, oh, well, what are these going to be good for? Well, if you grow any kind of flowers that may just grow to this height and that need some help not flopping over, these can work really great. But what I use them for is I put them near our sprinkler heads, because we live in a very old house, and our sprinkler system has sprinkler heads that are copper pipes that come up about this high, and they are easy to trip over. And so what I do is I put these in front of them, and then that keeps me from not tripping over the pipe that's maybe about this big coming out of the ground. And other ones that I love that also work as hose guards as well are stakes like this, because what I'll do is I'll put this as the lead stake, and then the hose will come around here, and then these are, pushed down into the ground, and then the hose will just guide along here and will protect all of my plants that are on the other side over here. And I'll overlay some pictures to show you how I have all of this set up. But now, rusty, old, yes, but heavyweight, nice quality, I think much better than a lot of what you can find at the garden stores today, and for a lot less. If you find ones of this nice, heavy quality, they could be pricey at some of those upscale garden stores. Even at the simple garden stores, like your hardware stores like Lowe's and Home Depot, I've been very surprised at the high cost of trellis, as well as these type of edge guards. But these are charming, they're perfect for a kitchen garden, they look so sweet, they're heavy, they're good quality, and they help protect your plants. So keep your eyes open for any type of stake at your junk shop. Alrighty, the next thing I'm going to talk about looking for at junk shops are two words that can strike a lot of emotion in people, both good and bad. And those two words are yard art. Yard art is either one of those things that you love or you hate. I love it, and I love to have a lot in my kitchen garden. It serves a lot of purposes. Part of it is just for enjoyment to look at, and part of it does help maybe discourage predators to a certain bit. Now, since I know that yard art does create a lot of emotion in people, sometimes very negative, I really reserve all my yard art for my garden and keep it away from my front yard. I have a very cute story that I want to share with you. When my husband and I were dating, I had already had the opportunity to meet his mom, but I hadn't had the opportunity to meet his dad yet. So we decided one weekend to fly up to where they lived and visit with them so that I could meet my future husband's father. Well, when they picked us up at the airport, they're lovely. I had already met his mom, his dad was wonderful. And when we got to their house, and we were walking around the backyard. My father-in-law was a wonderful gardener and showing me different things. They had a lot of yard art. I knew I was going to love these people. Now I'm going to take you around my garden and show you some of the yard art that I've collected from junk shops as well as other places as well. Sometimes I even find yard art in the garbage. But the nice thing about having yard art is if you like it, it can bring you some joy to see in your garden, as well as help you, as I mentioned earlier, to fend off some predators. Now, our garden is fenced, as most gardens are, and so that helps us fend off, deer and things like that. But I do kind of have a little ongoing battle sometimes with squirrels and a few other animals that are able to climb up and, come into the garden. And I like to think that maybe some of my yard art is a little, helps a little maybe to discourage them to not over nibble. I try to plant a lot, so there's some to share. But I do try, I do try with a little yard art in hopes to discourage them from completely eating everything. Now this is a piece of yard art that actually really has a lot of usefulness. This is a sundial, and I really like it. And this actually belonged to my parents. And when my father was looking for a place, he had this sundial. I'm not really sure where he had found that, but he was kind of looking around and trying to find something that he could put the sundial on. And then in his hunt, he was one to really enjoy kind of junk shops and things like that. And in his hunt, he found this base, and it worked perfectly for this sundial. So you never know what you're going to find. Now what I want to show you over here is this is just a cute little, what do you call, pagoda maybe? This actually belonged to my father-in-law. But what I want to highlight here are the three little fellas down at the bottom here. My son and I, as I've shared with you in the past, always had a lot of fun going junking over the summer. And there were two particular junk shops that we really loved to go to that were out in the hill country, actually in Johnson City. And my son is very proud of his Asian heritage. And he saw these little fellas and he said, "Oh, Mama, I got to put those guys in my box." And as I've shared with you often, when we would go junking and go to junk shops and we'd fill a box, sometimes we'd spend no more than $3, $4, $5 at most and come home with a big box of treasures. But that is just some fun, cute yard art. And if you notice, there's also all these little glass stones around here. Not really a junk shop, but in our travels, we came across a rock shop, and my son, when he was young, really loved rocks. And this fella had a lot of these sort of colored glass pieces, and he was moving. And so he gave my son a box and said, "Oh, fill a box. Think maybe $1 or $2. It wasn't much." And so we kind of have them scattered around the garden. But yeah, it's all stuff like this you can find at junk shops, and you don't mind putting it in the garden because you're paying such a small amount of money for it. So even if it gets a little faded or chipped, it's okay. And it just adds a little, if you want to sound very sophisticated, like architectural interest. Now, always keep your eyes open when you're at the junk shop for anything like this, like these birds or my rooster here, anything like that. I don't know if you can make out this fella too. I've got an eagle over there amongst my squash and cucumbers. And the reason that I have a lot going on in this area is this is where I've been dealing with some predators. This is very close to my back gate. And so I think my little visitors can scooch under the gate or climb up on top of the gate and jump down. And so they've been having a little good time with the radish greens. But I noticed, and I think I'm gonna have to get something to put over here, because I noticed once I put Mr. Rooster over here and is this a crane maybe? When I put him over here, these are just doing so much better now, and they don't seem to be being nibbled on. So maybe it helps. I like looking at them, and they also are helping me maybe win my little adventure with the squirrels. And something I always keep my eye open for, and it just makes me very happy, is when I can find religious yard art. And I've got a lovely Celtic, I'm of Irish ancestry on my father's side, Italian on my mom's. But I love these Celtic crosses because when my husband and I got married at the Catholic church that we got married at, the cross in the background, because the church had been built by a lovely Irish priest who married us, actually a Monsignor, and the cross in the background behind the altar was a Celtic cross. So whenever I can find a Celtic cross, it makes me very happy. And I love putting them around in the garden. And sometimes when you're at the junk shop, keep your eye open for just sort of whimsical yard art. Very cute things like this fellow my husband really likes. He's, especially since we love our toads, this little toad with his umbrella is just so cute. And he just puts a smile on our face every time we see him. And it's just a nice little bit of whimsy, you know, in the kitchen garden. Now, speaking of religious yard art, keep your eye open for nice statues like this. If you like these type of things, this is St. Francis, patron saint of animals, and I just love having him in the garden. It's a little hard to tell. He's like a little rustic, but he's got a little bird sitting there on his shoulder, and my husband and I we love birds, and we love having them in the garden. You know, we have the bird feeders, and we have the water in the fountain or in the little pond, and so it makes a real welcoming environment for the birds. And so it's nice having St. Francis here. So keep your eye open if you like statuary. These are other things that you can definitely find at the junk shop. And you can find them for a very good savings, because normally these can really get expensive when you look for them at the regular price garden shops. Other things that are really fun to look for at junk shops are cute little things like this that I wouldn't necessarily call this a stepping stone, because it is kind of, you know, it's uneven. Some people, there's nothing on the back here. Some people may attach something and maybe hang it on a fence. But what I like to do is just put them around in my garden. And this one, I don't know if you can tell here, typical, what you're going to find sometimes at junk shops, things are just going to be broken. But they'll be in a box sometimes. The junk man may even give them to you for free. But you can just put them in your box, and you know, they'll often look in the box and say, okay, $2, and kind of not be charging you for the broken things. But you can just come home, a little crazy glue or Gorilla Glue, whatever you have, glue it up, hold it for 60 seconds, and then look, it's so lovely. And it's got the dragonfly, and we get a lot of dragonflies, maybe because of the pond, I'm not really sure, but we get a lot of dragonflies at a certain time of year, so it's kind of fun having this. And I just put them right down around anywhere in my kitchen garden. And this is so pretty because it says Morning Glory. It's got the hummingbird, and just a lovely little decorative piece to have in the garden. Now we're on the patio area of my kitchen garden, and I just wanted to show you some other things if you like looking for religious art. Again, wrought iron things that are kind of rusted and old are very common to find at junk shops. And this just looks so sweet hanging here on the wall. I haven't painted it or anything, I've just left it very rustic. And then other things that you can find, like this, again, it's very rusty, but this you can put a little like tea light here, you know, a little glass holder or metal holder, and a little tea light if you're entertaining outside. It just can be so sweet. So that's another fun thing to look for. And something else, although technically not in the yard art category, but sometimes, because it's got stuff in it, I'll look for little pictures like this, like a gravy bowl, and this you'll see, you know, this is cracked, which would, you know, kind of be a germ attractor and not something that you would really want to use on a regular basis for food. But what I'll do, and this is often, this is a little more dirty because it's been outside for the spring now, with these pieces all falling off of our live oak. But they'll often look like this, you know, you might have a little crack or a little chip, and they won't be very clean, but these are fun to find because even at a thrift store, you'll probably pay a little more for something like this. This is, like this is made in England, and so at a thrift store, this would be priced a little higher. But since it's got this crack, or you may, as I said, find something with a chip, you can put a few, I've got some in the back, some of the little pebbles, the little tiny little river rock pebbles. I'm going to put some pebbles in here. I'm going to put a little dirt in here. These are perfect for holding succulents, like little baby succulents that just look so cute. So these are the kind of artsy things to keep your eyes open for. Well, here's my buddy behind me, my lion. I've got two of them. I just love them. Lions were one of my favorite animals when I was a kid. I really enjoyed the movie Born Free, if you've ever seen it. If not, I highly recommend it. But I loved having these lions here right out on our patio in this little raised bed. And I've really got a mishmash, so to speak, of yard art here. This is actually something that I'm going to put a succulent in. It had a succulent in it, but I forgot to bring it in during the storms, and so it died. But this was something, talking about junk shops, that my son and I were junking one summer, and we saw this little, not really a garage sale because it wasn't in anybody's house, it was just a few tables that some fella had set up at a gas station, really like an extension of a junk shop. And he had this, and my son it had a succulent in it, and he just really liked it. And so we've got that, so we'll replant something in there. And then I've got Mr. Bunny over here. He's missing an ear, but that's okay. He's just in the garden. And Mr. Toad or Frog, our son always loved that. And then we have Mrs. Puddle Duck keeping the Blessed Mother Statuary Company. And then she's got her little baby, a baby puddle duck next to her. And just lovely little things like this, that these are the kinds of things that really bring me joy. Having these things in my kitchen garden, it makes me very happy to see them sort of peeking out amongst the plants. So I know I've said a lot about yard art, but I love it. And so if you're like me and you love yard art, be sure to check out the junk shops. Now let's talk about the good things that you can find in the garbage for free. Often you may find that your neighbors are throwing out old watering cans that have become a little beat up. Maybe they're missing their little sprayer on top here, like this one has, but even this one, it's kind of all a little rotted away. This apparently had something on the front here, but who cares? Watering cans have become very expensive. Another thing, I don't have this on my list, but keep your eyes open if you ever see people throwing out hose reels, because hose reels have become very expensive, and you can often jerry-rig them, like I jerry-rigged a broken one I had, just by kind of cobbling together other pieces and making it work, and that was a big money saver, because they're at a minimum, at least where we live, at a minimum $30 and as high as $80. I was shocked. But watering cans too, they can be expensive. So keep your eyes open. If you have, if you know somebody, a friend or a neighbor who's throwing out their watering cans, ask them if you can have them, because these are great to use. I like to have a couple of watering cans. I mix my Jerry Baker, if I've shared with you about my gardening books. Jerry Baker is one of my favorite gardening authors because he has all these home remedies that you can make with very simple ingredients, like baby shampoo, hydrogen peroxide, instant tea. You can mix these up in here and just water your pots, water your plants, ones that you don't necessarily need just a gentle spray for. So keep your eye open for anybody who's throwing out watering cans. You can never have enough watering cans. Now this is one I see thrown out all the time. Broken flower pots. Look at that. Sometimes we can have, as we just had this last winter, a lot of extremes in temperature, and a lot of pots cracked and broke, and a lot of people were getting rid of flower pots and throwing them out. But these can be so nice for the garden, because no one's going to see that you don't have to use it as an actual flower pot, say on a patio. You can put these, as I've done right here, just put this down into the dirt just to look like a little artistic. And I'm going to fill this with soil, and then I'm going to put some seed in here, maybe some edible flowers, maybe just some herbs, anything, it doesn't matter. And they'll just grow, and they'll grow over the pot, and it'll look so sweet. So definitely look anytime you see someone throwing out broken flower pots and say, can I have it? Because you can really make it look like a lovely little piece in your kitchen garden. Another thing that you'll often see thrown out and are perfect for using in your kitchen garden are these plastic pots. And these are great for using as seed starters, or if you want to start a seed, grow it into a little plant and be able to give it to a friend who may just be getting started with a kitchen garden. This can be a really useful way to transport things. These little ones are especially terrific if you don't want to invest in those plastic long dishes that have all the individual placements for seeds that can get kind of expensive. You can find these wonderful things like a tray like this that people are just throwing out. Sometimes even you'll find that they're throwing it out at your garden shop, and you can ask them if you can have them. And then you can just take all these little planters that often many people are throwing out, even sometimes your garden shops, and you can just line your planter, your little tray planter with this, and put your seeds in here and have them under your grow lights or whatever the case may be, however you start your plants, and then you're all set. And sometimes some of them are larger, which are really great. There's this size. This one it looks so lovely on its own, just like a nice flower pot. If you want to have a plant, it's already got the drainage holes in it. If you want to just use this to plant something that you put on maybe one of the walls, if you have a raised garden bed like I do that's built out of stone, and you just want to have a few pots on the wall where you're growing something, or if you have a windowsill, if your kitchen garden right now is just in your kitchen on a sunny windowsill, these can work great. And if you like to put things in baskets, like maybe you've got some, old weathered baskets that maybe you picked up at the junk shop or the thrift store, wherever the case may be, you can put your plant in here and then put this down into your basket. And if it's something you're using outside and the basket is weathered, you're not worried about it. But what's nice is if you want to change things out, you can easily take this out of your basket, put it somewhere else, put a different plant in your basket, whatever. You're not worrying about having to, buy that moss that they sell for lining baskets and then planting your plants in there, and then that becomes kind of permanent. This makes everything very easy to change out whenever the feeling strikes you to have a different look. So definitely keep your eyes open. They often, come in all different sizes. These were from, Bonnie plants, and these were also Bonnie, So there's a lot of things that you can look for that are often just trash to other people and are being thrown out, but that you'll be able to make very good use of for your kitchen garden. Now, when it comes to plant stands, I have a lot of them. And I think the very first plant stand I found, I was probably about 10 years old, and I was walking around the neighborhood, and somebody had thrown out a plant stand and a little wrought iron framed mirror. Well, I was so happy. I dragged those two things home. It's just, I laugh when I think about myself. I was a junker at heart even as a little kid. But when it comes to plant stands, sometimes when it comes to looking for things in the garbage that may make good plant stands, start to think a little outside the box and be a little creative. I'm going to show you what I mean. Now this is some kind of little boudoir chair that maybe had a little seat here once and was in front of maybe a little vanity or something like that. But whatever the case may be, if you see something like this and it's just being discarded, ask the person if you might be able to have it. I'm just leaving it very rustic here, but maybe one day if I'm feeling particularly energetic, maybe I'll give it a new coat of white paint. But whatever the case may be, this is a perfect pot holder, because here is my flower pot. Now there's nothing in here now. This had something in it, but it died during the storms. So I'm going to refill it with some nice potting soil and grow a few things in here. I think I'll put some edible flowers in here. But look at this. It just goes right into there. How cute is that? And it's perfect. It raises it up off the ground. It's easy for me to access, and it just looks darling. So when it comes to thinking of ideas for plant stands, look and see what's in the garbage, because you may come up with some very clever ways to showcase your flower pots. Now, something I never turn my nose up to when I see it being thrown out is furniture for my kitchen garden. Now, I know these look a little worse for wear, and this one is actually a really old one, and it's a beautiful wrought iron. This one is a little more modern, as is the little table over there, but these can easily be fixed up. I'll paint these with a little Rust-Oleum. I'll get some nice cushions for them on sale at the end of the season so I can save money. Maybe I'll even find some at the thrift shop. But these are wonderful. because this gives me a place to sit down when I get a little tired, when I'm gardening, or maybe after I'm gardening, to sit and enjoy a nice little beverage that I can put on my table, look at my garden, and just enjoy all the labor that I put into growing my various vegetables and herbs. But never turn your nose up to garden furniture being thrown out. And so much of it, it's amazing to me how many people throw out beautiful, what I consider beautiful furniture that can easily be saved and repurposed into lovely furniture for yourself for your kitchen garden. So keep your eye open when you see people throwing out outside furniture. It's often very easy to salvage. The next thing I want to talk about are bamboo sticks. I see a lot of these thrown out. Now, if you notice, this is a nice thick bamboo stick, and you'll see that this one is much thinner. This is one that I had purchased from the garden store. Now, they're pretty reasonable. I think I got a bag for maybe about $3 or so, and I think maybe it comes with 6 of these. But as you see, they're very thin versus these, which are nice and thick and a lot stronger. Well, where did these come from? These are from the garbage, because if you have anybody in your area who's doing landscaping, you will often see, along with the plastic pots being thrown out, you'll see bamboo sticks being thrown out. And the reason is, a lot of 5-gallon or maybe even 10-gallon plants will come staked with these bamboo sticks. But often if they're being planted, either by the landscaper or the homeowner, they'll replace the bamboo stick with something more sturdy, like a metal stake, because often what's growing in that 5-gallon pot or that 10-gallon pot is something that's going to grow big and is going to need a more sturdy stake. And things are often staked here in Central Texas because our sun is so strong, to prevent everything from growing like this, either away from the sun or to the sun, depending on what it likes. Staking is very common. And often, along with the plastic pots, these bamboo sticks will be thrown out. Well, these are great for the kitchen garden. I am using them this year, and I love it. In the past with my tomatoes, I had shared with you in one of my videos about where I take you on a tour of my kitchen garden, and I'll be sure to link to that in the iCards and in the description below. But I often used tomato cages, and I have tomato cages, oh gosh, they're like 20, I think I've shared 20 or 30 years old, and they're fine, but in the garden video I share a cute little story with you about one of our dogs who got her head caught in the tomato cage one. So I'm a little hesitant to just always be putting out tomato cages, and I also find that sometimes it's so difficult, pulling all the vine or the stems and stalks through the tomato cages and cleaning up and whatnot, that I said, I'm just going to use bamboo sticks this year and see how it goes. And so far I'm really happy. I've got them going over here with my cherry tomatoes, and I've got them here with my Roma tomatoes. I've got some with my green beans. I've got some over there with my squash and my cucumbers. Everybody seems to be doing well. The squash is really loving wrapping around the bamboo. So I'm very happy. But whenever I can find these nice thick ones that are being thrown out, like I've got 2 here that are nice and thick, I've got 1 here. This one down here is broken. So I do have one of the thin ones in its place. But I saved it anyways because I'll use it as a plant stake for something else that's small. And I've got some nice thick ones in the middle there. So often the ones that come with those 5 and 10 gallon plants that are often put in, by landscapers, keep your eyes open for these, because these are good quality. And bonus tip, kitchen garden fencing. This is often thrown out a lot because it gets rusty and bent, and people just don't want to deal with it anymore, so they pull it up and put it out on the curb. So if you have any friends or neighbors throwing stuff out like this, ask them if you can have it, because if there's an area of your kitchen garden where you need to keep a dog out or another animal, this is going to be a lifesaver. Well, if you'd like to hear more about my kitchen garden, have a tour of it, learn what I had to deal with after the Texas storms and what I'm planting now, all about my medicinal herb garden and more, be sure to click on this playlist over here. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country kitchen garden. Love and God bless.